smarter than you as well. Even when they made mistakes, even when they didn't see things clearly, those mistakes are often deeply illuminating because they're the kind of mistakes which you or I might be much more likely to make than they did. And finally, I believe that studying the development of thought tells us something about how we think. To an extent we don't always like to recognize, our thoughts about the world are really shaped by what other people before us said and by public disputes that happened when we were small or even before we were born. And so often when we read these great thinkers, I think we find some glimpse into our own thought patterns and the patterns of people who may be governing us and ruling us. This case was never put better than by the British economist John Maynard Keynes. He's a 20th century economist who will be meeting in the 9th lecture of this series. But at the very end of his 1936 classic, The General Theory of Employment, Interest, and Money, he wrote, "The ideas of economists and political philosophers, both when they are right and when they are wrong, are more powerful than is commonly understood. Indeed, the world is ruled by little else. Practical men, who believe themselves to be quite exempt from any intellectual influences, are usually the slaves of some defunct economist. Madmen in authority, who hear voices in the air, are distilling their frenzy from some academic scribbler of a few years back. I am sure the power of vested interests is vastly exaggerated compared with the gradual encroachment of ideas." What we're going to talk about is that gradual encroachment of economic ideas over the last several centuries. Now, as a way of getting started or launched on this path, what we need to do first is sort of set the scene before there really was economics and talk briefly about what was happening in the Middle Ages. The reason for that is that conventionally, economists would say that the study of our discipline didn't really start until about Adam Smith in 1776, who you'll meet in the 2nd lecture. So the question that immediately comes up is, well, why does it start with Adam Smith? What was happening before then? Why wasn't there economics through the 1300s and 1400s and 1500s and through all those centuries up until then? Now, in order to explain that, you have to allow me to make a few fairly broad and sweeping statements to try and capture a few things that I think are true key themes about the Middle Ages and that economics will end up building on. So, first of all, one of the things that's happening in the 16th, 17th century is the emergence of national political units. Instead of having feudal loyalty to a local lord or something like that, there was a notion of an ongoing nation and being part of a group of people. Now that's important for the development of economics because economics is going to take off from that notion of what benefits the nation, how it makes a nation strong or rich. And so that development of a national identity is one important thing that's happening. A second thing that's going on in the Middle Ages is the emergence of a sort of modern idea of individuality. Now, what I mean by that is that up until then, it was probably fair to say that when you thought about what you should be or do in the world, you thought of yourself in a role, filling a certain plug in society or a certain niche in society. One description from the parson in Chaucer's Canterbury Tales is, the parson says, according to Chaucer, "God had ordained that some folk should be more high in estate and in degree, and some folk more low, and everyone should be served in his estate and his degree." So the sort of old-time, middle-agey notion is everyone has a role, everyone has an estate, everyone has a degree, stick to it. If you're a lord, that's true. If you're a merchant, that's true. Whatever your role is, go with it. But with the growth of Protestantism, Martin Luther, a lot of different things like that, there began to be a sense that individuals mattered, that they could change their status in the world, that individual worth somehow had a different meaning than just filling the particular niche that you'd been given. And economics would build on that notion of individuality. A third thing that's happening in the Middle Ages is the growth of trade between people. And normally the reasons given for this is that population is growing in Europe, and as population grows and population centers grow up, different people begin to specialize in different things because they can serve these larger markets. So you begin to see patterns like wool is being shipped out of England, where it's easy to grow sheep. Cloth is being made in Flanders, where a large group of weavers get started. Fish is being sent from Denmark, a country on the ocean. You begin to see these sorts of patterns forming, often formed by a pattern of national geography or something like that. In places like Italy, in the middle of the Mediterranean, there was lots of shipping going on back and forth, and so merchant and financing and legal community.
Para seguir escuchando este audiolibro gratuitamente, haz clic en el enlace de la descripción y podrás escucharlo completo sin coste gracias a la prueba de 30 días de Audible.